Okay, good evening, everyone. Let's call the meeting to order at 6:04, and let's do the roll call. I'll ask Marina to do the roll call.
Item 1A, roll call. Commissioner Amirian?
Here.
Commissioner Bonston?
Here.
Commissioner Lester?
Here.
Commissioner Ordubegyan? Chair Avagian?
Here. And so next item, 1B, let's stand for the flag salute. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving to the next item, which is posting of the agenda. And so the agenda was posted on October 28 for the regular meeting. Am I?
Chair Vagian, this would be for the clerk of the commission to report.
Okay, I'll let Marina do her job.
Item 2, posting of the agenda. The agenda for the October 28th, 2024 regular meeting of the Glendale Transportation and Parking Commission was posted by October 24th, 2024 before 5 p.m. on the bulletin board outside of City Hall.
Okay, and do we have anything to discuss about it? Any questions about the minute? Oh, agenda. Okay, so we have to approve it right now. The agenda. Voting on it or no?
No, just the report on the agenda, and there will be discussion and potential approval of the minutes in the next item.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to move to the next item now. Okay, let's move to the next item, which is item 3, approval of the minutes.
Minutes of the Transportation and Parking Commission regular meeting on August 26, 2024.
Any questions about the, do we do the roll call then to discuss, or no, we first have to discuss?
Any questions or comments, and then roll call, Chair Vagian.
Okay, so any questions or comments about the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
And is there a second? We need a second, right?
Second.
So it's been moved by Commissioner Amirian and seconded by Commissioner Lester to approve the minutes. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Commissioner Amirian?
Yes.
Commissioner Bonston?
I believe I'm abstaining because I was not present.
Commissioner Lester?
Yes.
Commissioner Ordubegyan? Chair Avagian?
Yes. Okay, moving to the next item, which is presentations.
There are no presentations on the agenda.
Next item, item number 5, consent item.
There are no consent items on the agenda.
Next item, 6A, appointment of ex officio non-voting student members.
Motion appointing Adira Mukherjee and Kevin Barati as ex officio non-voting student members of the Transportation and Parking Commission and providing direction regarding the process for selecting and appointing ex officio non-voting student members.
So Chair Vagian, I will be giving a brief update on this item for the Commission's consideration. So as a way of background, on July 22nd, 2024, the TPC adopted a resolution establishing the process for selecting ex officio non-student members. The resolution provides that the TPC will select 2 of its voting members to serve as on a selection committee. On July 22nd, the TPC designated Commissioners Amirian and Bonston to serve on that committee. Excuse me. The selection committee screens the applicants, selects and interviews 2 or more of the most qualified applicants, and selects 2 of the applicants to recommend for the appointment. This year, the city received 5 applicants who met the minimum qualifications. And as such, the members of the committee have made their selection as read by the clerk. I will also note, as the last item, is that during the deliberations, Councilmember Amirian and Boston have both brought up some observations or points that they would want the commission to deliberate on. So we have added an item to provide direction from the commission to staff to then update our rules going forward. So that completes my item, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
So we're going to be voting on 6A, then moving to 6B to discuss Commissioner Amirian and Commissioner Bonston's.
So there, see, that's correct. There's two items being considered. First is the appointment of the two members selected by the selection committee, and then to provide direction. So how you guys could choose how you guys want to approach each item. If you guys want to make the selection first, and then you guys could discuss the process.
Chair, if I may. So I'd love to just give kind of a recap of the experience and my perspective on it. And so first off, the process by which we came to the office, and we had basically a package prepared for us that had the qualified applicants listed, and each of those applicants had their package, and there were 5 students, a mix of high school students and college students. And so we then inquired if there were any best practices with other commissions that had already chosen their ex officio student members. We were informed that there were none, and as the selection committee that we could go through and interview them as we saw fit, and the we here being myself and Commissioner Bronstein. And so we had a brief discussion about how to approach the process. We asked for the actual resolution that laid out what the requirements were, and we reviewed that. And so we decided to interview the students, and we did. We interviewed the students. We had discussions regarding each of the students after the interviews, and then we also had a discussion holistically about what the needs of the commission might be, what the rules are as we understand them, and what, if any, pitfalls there might be in terms of choosing specific students. And so one of the things that we immediately realized, based upon our experience with ex officio student member Eubanks, was that appointing a high school student to serve with a term beginning ostensibly today and ending a year from today would probably lead to some of the same issues that we observed with Commissioner Eubanks. Namely, high school students who are seniors tend to graduate. And once they graduate, there's some chance that they either will move on to their college activities locally and not want to continue serving on the commission, or that they will move out of state, which means that they will no longer be able to serve in that capacity. And so what we noted was that with Commissioner Eubanks, we had a set period of time that was within his appointed period where he was just incapable of coming in due to his commitments at his school. And so in the spirit of taking this process seriously and understanding that not only do we appoint these ex officio members as a way for us to have a voice in their particular generation, high school and college students, we also understand that we would like to set them up for success and not have them, have to abandon their post due to not being able to continue for any reason. And so what Commissioner Bronstein and I saw was an opportunity to potentially set not only the students that we choose up for success, but the commission and the future commissioners on the commission and anybody who might be on the selection committee in the future up for success by coming up with a a solution. And so what we offered was to choose 2 of the high school students, one of which was a senior, and have that senior's time period go from, today ostensibly, until some date in June, whatever the June, meeting is. And then, have the other high school student, who was a junior, and, both of whom were incredibly qualified, have him start a June through June student ex officio position, going from 25 to 26. And then also for the college seat, because the resolution requires, if we were to choose 2 students, decide to choose 2 students, the resolution requires that we choose 1 high school student and 1 college student. So for the college seat, we had a consensus on who we had chosen. And so in that way, we informed staff of what we were thinking and what we would like to do. And what I would hope is that we come to a consensus here as a commission of how we want to move forward, and then instruct staff to help us with the legal and considerations necessary to make that happen. So just in summary, all of the students that we interviewed were excellent. We also believe that they were all qualified. We looked at them based upon the resolution. The language in the resolution said that the selection committee was empowered to look at these students and determine our choices based on a holistic manner. And I believe we did that. And we came up with the 2 high school student solution in the manner in which I described, having the senior serve ostensibly from the date that we approve him until June, when he would graduate, and then having the junior student, who was eminently qualified, begin that next term, and just have whoever the selection committee is at that point, just choose for a college student, for that 1 year, starting in June. So just having things go June to June, just so that we avoid having this, number one, this issue of constantly trying to fill a high school position. And number 2, we don't want to have 2 selection committee dates. It's unnecessary. We can choose both a college student and a high school student at the June date. So hopefully that clarifies what our position is. And I'd invite Commissioner Bronstein, who I had the extreme pleasure of working with that day, to give her comments as well.
Thank you. Well, the pleasure was mine. It was truly my most favorite activity so far to collaborate with you on. I mean, it was just a beautiful day. It really was an inspiration to speak with these students, and they're so well-spoken, so dedicated, each just offering tremendous skills. I think we felt really positive about our future, and so it was a wonderful experience. I appreciate how you characterized and summarized kind of what we put into the deliberation, what we were considering, particularly when we came up with sort of a little bit of an outside-of-the-box solution to what we were kind of struggling with. And I do appreciate looking at, that solution for the summer-to-summer year commitment. And I had noted it last year, or the year when we first had a student come on, that might be a problem. So I do think that's a good solution. And I would just add another option, or I guess the way that I was thinking it too, is the college student, maybe even instead of revisiting in the summer, could serve a year and a half, or maybe we have the option for that, because it sounded like that person was just beginning and would have some future still, maintaining in Glendale and being a college student. But other than that, I concur, and it was a a lovely experience and really appreciate staff and the city and all the effort that you put into making that a very productive but very thorough process.
May I ask a question? So basically, this means that the next selection committee is going to be choosing only a college student because the high school student is already pre-chosen by this previous selection committee, right?
Yes, Commissioner Bronstein's, I'm open to Commissioner Bronstein's suggestion as well, or we just simply set them up, to go, June to June, October, like today until some date in June. Then the high school student, the second high school student that we chose takes over June to June, 25 to 26. And if we choose as a commission, and we can, ask to modify, however the rules are around choosing our ex officio student members, so that it's kosher there. We can then just say, hey, this college student is actually going to serve from October until June of 26. And then at that point, there will be an annual selection committee, appointed by the commission. So yeah, I'm open to that option if it's something that's workable. But I think it would really benefit staff if they understood what our desires and wishes were in terms of working this out and the reasoning behind it, and then they can make that happen as far as the legal language necessary. They can tell us if we need to vote on the resolution or what the options are. And I think maybe the city attorney or Director Hernandez can inform us there.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner Marion. So the operative resolution states that ex officio student member terms commence at the regular October meeting and terminate at the subsequent regular October meeting, and that each term is set at 1 year. So if you wanted to make appointments tonight, you would be making 1 year appointments. And if a student could no longer serve, there's of course nothing that prevents a student commissioner from tendering their resignation and you accepting their resignation. I hear loud and clear what you're saying, Commissioner Marion, about setting them up for success. And if you don't want to put them in a position to tender a resignation for whatever reason, then in a motion you would provide direction, and I could recite back what I understand the direction, or at least the ad hoc's preference to be, if it's the consensus of the commission, for us to prepare an amendment to the resolution, and then you could make an appointment for a shorter period of time at the December meeting if you don't want to make 1 year appointments tonight. As for the college student, you can make the appointment, as Commissioner Bonston stated, you could make the appointment tonight. There's nothing in the resolution nor in the municipal code that prohibits you from reappointing an ex officio student member to a subsequent term. There's still terms set at 1 year. And if you provide a direction to the contrary, we can work with the terms to amend that duration. But the term again would be a 1 year reappointment unless you made an amendment to the resolution. I hope that answers the question. So maybe I'll just sum back up. The resolution states that ex officio student member appointments are made in October. If you want to make them in June, that will require an amendment. If you want to make consecutive appointments, so for instance, if you wanted to designate someone to serve between December this year and June next year, and then someone else to take over in June next year to June 2026, that would require an amendment. If you don't want to necessarily have an ad hoc every year, but instead rely on consecutive appointments, that would require an amendment. And we can make all of those amendments if they're approved by motion tonight. We'd bring them back to you at your next meeting, whether in December or otherwise, and then you could make appointments at that time. But if you want to make appointments tonight, they would be for 1 year terms.
Got it.
Up to 2 appointments for 1 year terms.
May I ask some follow-up questions?
Go ahead.
So first off, the resolution that we were provided, is that particular to our commission, or is that a overriding resolution for all commissions?
It is particular to the Transportation and Parking Commission, but it is modeled on the procedures that other boards and commissions with ex officio student members utilize.
Got it. Do you have any data on other commissions having similar issues to us with high school students having to tender resignations or just not showing up for meetings after graduation date?
It's not something that I could speak to competently, Commissioner Murray.
Yeah, and I could imagine. And look, I understand it from you know, the city's, you know, perspective of look, you know, maybe it's not that big of a deal. They just tendered their resignations. But I at least remember what I was like in high school, and I was reminded with some of these interviews. And the earnestness and the seriousness with which these applicants approach this deserve, at least in my mind, a little bit of consideration from us so that we don't put them in a position where they have to write a resignation letter or just not show up. And so, you know, if we see a potential problem, I think that it would be reasonable for us to ask staff to spend a little bit of legwork tweaking this language so that we can get it right, as it were, and then, you know, move forward. It makes complete sense to me that each of those aspects, given the resolution that we have agreed to, and that we didn't foresee the problems with, it makes sense to me that each of those would require an amendment. And my gut feeling is to go ahead and as a commission, make those motions, have it come back in the December meeting. As soon as that December meeting, it's, you know, that we approve the resolution, then we can, at the same meeting then, appoint, you know, in the manner that we had discussed, appoint the, you know, the student commissioners that Commissioner Bronstein and I identified. And I think if we have a consensus as a whole for the commission here, I think it'll go a long way in showing, first off, that this is a serious thing. And I'll be very honest, my gut feeling prior to going into this process, and it was one of the reasons why I volunteered, my gut feeling was to go, no students, to say like, we've got business to take care of, it's gonna add more. And afterwards, I think I was just impressed with the level of students that we had. And I think they can add substantive discussion, even in non-voting capacities, that outweigh any extra time that might be spent, you know, entertaining 2 extra opinions. So I'd love to get feedback and your thoughts on it, but if barring none, I think I would make the motion, you know, to direct staff to modify the resolution in the manner in which, you know, I pointed out. And then we can decide as a commission, we can appoint the college student that we agreed upon tonight. And, you know, she can start and, you know, at our next meeting and see how the sausage is made in terms of you know, the care with which we approach this, and then have the high school students kind of start off, and that way it's a June to June, and we mitigate these graduation issues and summer issues for students.
Should we then go ahead right now and appoint the college student and then move to the next item to direct staff?
My suggestion, Chair Avagian, is that since you're in the comment and question period now, that you complete your comments and questions internally among the commission. If it looks like, based on those comments and questions, there is going to be support for the course of action that Commissioner Amirian is suggesting, I would propose to you that I repeat back what the direction is. And if it's also the commission's consensus to make an appointment tonight, that we understand which one of the the people named in the staff report that is, and note that that appointment pursuant to the resolution would be from October to October, and that it can subsequently be renewed or the student can be reappointed, or that the amended resolution would govern the ultimate duration of that person's appointment. Does that make sense?
Yes, so at this point, I would basically just have the discussion continue if anyone else wants to say something.
None of these are words so far. Okay. What I was thinking, and maybe it does make sense, the 1 year to 1 year, and then in 1 year moment, we then change it to a 6-month period, right? What I was trying to eliminate was like something in the summer and then something again next December. But in kind of thinking through and as you described it, because I was imagining we would do something like a one-time amendment to permit subsequent, the next 6 months and the year after that. But I think I was thinking about it differently.
Yeah, and in terms of, I'm getting what you're throwing out there, and
It's
so-
amazing that you are.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
we're on the same wavelength here. So yeah, you want to avoid, if we do amend, just to summarize for everybody else, and then you can confirm if this is it. You want to avoid that if we do amend the resolution at this point and we appoint our college student, that we have to go through another June process. And so at that point, given the new resolution, we can then at the October meeting just say, hey, as a commission, we are choosing to reappoint this young lady for the October through June period of 25 through 26, and we can make an amendment at that point. It doesn't stop us right now from appointing her under the current rules.
I think that we could also, and I'm sorry, I know you, I think that we could also amend the resolution to change the term from June to June. No, I guess we can't do that and appoint someone. I've lost my own train of thought here.
We can, the resolution can be amended to make the term up to 1 year with the option for reappointment, and to change the cycle from October to October, or the commission can make appointments whenever there's a vacancy.
Okay, so we have to make some choice to bring it to the June. And then I was imagining a one-time amendment to permit subsequent appointees. Like I was trying to think if we could do it tonight for the next year and a half, that might save a bit of hassle. That relies on people being available. I mean, there's a lot of like other things that would depend upon.
What's the possibility of amending the resolution just to change the term from June to June meeting tonight? And then appointing both of our commissioners tonight?
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that I understand, Commissioner Marion, that so the motion that is agendized for you tonight is to give direction. A particular amendment has not been agendized. So if it is your intention to change the duration of a student commissioner's term or the cycle of service, we would bring that back to you at a subsequent meeting.
Got it. So it has to come back at another meeting just because the specific way that this was agendized doesn't cover this scenario.
Correct. The item on the agenda is for you to provide feedback,
Got it.
to provide direction.
Got it. Yeah. So I would be all for it, Commissioner Bronstein, if we could do it. Like make the motion, amend it tonight, June to June, and then we make our appointments the way we said, and then young future student commissioner Barati would then come in June of 25, and then we all high five each other and leave. But as we're going to learn, the Brown Act governs, and so I guess we just have to do it this way.
So is the discussion still continuing? I guess Commissioner Lester had something to say, so.
Well, first, many thanks to Commissioners Marion and Bonston for taking on the committee and sounds like taking it really seriously and maybe even enjoying the process of doing that. I mean, I've been trying to follow along. I think I understand what you're saying. It's making a lot of sense. The goal here is to change the pattern so that the appointment would be in June so as to work with educational calendars, keep people from having to drop out, and we're just trying to get it. So once the goal is basically once we get to June, it would reset to being a June thing, a yearly June appointment, right? And the other thing I wasn't clear on, so you talked about a college student, and you said there's 2 high school students that you felt could basically take 2 shifts in this first period. Now, so the second one, the one who would start in June, would then have a year term? Is that right? Okay, I got it.
Any other discussions? Questions? No? Okay, again, thank you very much for taking the time and being part of the selection process. When this topic came up, I remember me as a student, how excited I was going through different selection processes, being appointed to different stuff. And I think it's a great opportunity for the students, and whatever we come up, as long as we have students here and they're given the opportunity, they're given the experience, it works. So whatever makes them to have that kind of like a start point or foot in the door of being part of the community, it's a great idea. So thank you very much again, Commissioner Marion and Commissioner Bonston, for being part of the selection committee. So let's go ahead and move with the item number 6A, right? Appointment of ex officio non-voting student member. Am I understanding it correctly right now? So we're appointing then.
I don't know whether you are, Chair Avagian, but you can entertain motions at this time.
Yeah, no, yeah, so
Okay,
is there a motion?
Yeah, so, Chair, I will make a motion to direct staff to modify the resolution as we have discussed, to change the service time from June to June rather than October to October. That's understanding that probably at our April meeting or whichever the previous meeting is, if necessary, the commission will discuss appointing another selection committee, in the future. That's just going to happen basically, but it's going to happen sooner rather than later. Okay. And then, I think that is its own motion, and we should probably entertain that motion first, and then we can discuss who we want to appoint, if anybody, tonight.
So if I may, for the chair and members of the commission, so similar to what we do in a contractual item for the city council, when there is an amendment built into the agreement, we bring it months in advance so that the direction is they either choose to extend it, but if not, then we have sufficient time to go through the RFP process. So we'll probably do something very similar here. But however, for the sake of timing and aligning calendars, we'd probably start that process in February of the regular scheduled meeting in February to select the committee or to make that determination if it's going to be a reappointment. But if not, then we would give us at least 3 months to prepare for that process. Because I think in April, that only gives us 2 months, and it's very compacted.
Oh, yeah, and I appreciate you clarifying that. I just threw out April because I think, in my brain it was the first meeting, but whenever necessary.
Okay.
So in this scenario under the motion that I have made, basically speaking, what would happen is in February, you would come back and say, hey, selection committee time, and then at that point, the commission will say, well, what we're going to do is we already have a commissioner, ex officio commissioner in mind. We're going to appoint the other high school student as the commissioner, and then we're going to decide whether or not we want to extend our college student, for her extra period from October until June. And so we can discuss that at that point. And I think at that point, that would just be a discussion that could happen, during that item when it comes up, to the commission at that point, correct?
If I understand if I understand the intention, then I believe so, if I understand the intention.
Great. Yeah, and I think you do. And also, I believe both Commissioner Bronstein and I are being very careful not to just throw out names because, we're still dealing with high school students and very young people. So we don't want to have them just hear their names or have their relatives go, oh, you were mentioned, and create any type of anxiety, unnecessary anxiety for them. All of this is really, for us trying to approach this with care. So my motion stands. As I said, Mr. City Attorney, if you'd like to, summarize it, but I think we got the gist of modifying.
I just have 2 points of clarification, perhaps. What I understood your question to me to be, Commissioner Marion, is if an item were agendized to discuss the conclusion and potential reappointment of a sitting ex officio student commissioner, could that be done without any additional formality at that time? And the answer is yes, as long as we've noticed it accordingly under the Brown Act. In the Commission's previous discussion, in addition to adjusting the cycle, both you and Commissioner Bonston had mentioned certainly appointments not limited to being made in October, but also prospective appointments, allowing for consecutive appointments. In other words, naming someone to start now and someone to start at some future date. Terms not necessarily being limited to 1 year, but perhaps up to 1 year, and then not necessarily appointing an ad hoc every year if there are potential appointments based on the previous selection process. Does your motion encompass those direction to prepare amendments to the resolution to reflect those changes?
I would ask that it does, because I think if you're going to amend it, like if you open up the hood, you might as well do all the work that's necessary. And those suggestions give us the flexibility, the future flexibility, and future commissioners, the flexibility to deal with these situations, rather than then, kind of being forced to fit into a box that might be just a little too uncomfortable. So I would include all of those in my motion and hope to get support from the commission.
I have a question, if I may. So technically, one thing that's really concerning me is, as you have mentioned, Commissioner Miriam, we're dealing with very young people, and having a student kind of like a standby when their term is going to start in, let's say, 6 months, how do we kind of like control that they're still going to be interested in taking the position, and their motivation is still going to be in place? So that's my only concern. I would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. We wouldn't really be what we're doing right now is kind of winking at that student commissioner, and letting him know that Commissioner Bronstein and I thought he was extremely impressive and that we would appoint him. But in this scenario, that we're going to decide to appoint somebody, and then, in February or whatever, we can reach out to that young man and see if he's still interested in the role, or staff can reach out to him at some point. I don't think we have to designate that today, that's what we intend to do. We're just kind of giving a heads up that if that student is still interested and available, we're going to appoint him as the ex officio commissioner a year from now, or, whenever we decide. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're not asking him to just sit by and make a commitment to something that he's not participating in, but we're kind of giving him a nod that he's on deck.
Okay. Okay. So we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion. And honestly, I don't think we can predict future. as long as they're available, I think we can just move on at that moment. So I'll second the motion.
So we have, the motion has been moved by Commissioner Amirian and seconded by Commissioner Ordobagian.
Before we conclude the item, or before we call the roll, Chair Avagian, and perhaps I should have clarified, is the commission intending to take a separate vote on whether to appoint an ex officio student commissioner tonight? Or did you want that to be part of your motion, Commissioner Amirian, or did you want to make two separate motions?
I think this motion is complex enough, can stand on its own, and
Okay.
then we can discuss that separately.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's just move to roll call.
Commissioner Mirian,
Yes.
Commissioner Bonston,
Yes.
Commissioner Lester,
Yes.
Commissioner Ordubagian,
Yes.
Chair Avagian.
Yes. So we have to move to next.
There's no new item. You're still on the same item. It's taking up the separate matter of whether you intend to appoint an ex officio student commissioner tonight based on the existing resolution.
Okay, wow.
Okay, so I will make a motion. Let me just pull this up so I get our young lady's name correct. I would make a motion appointing Adira Mukhertichian as ex officio non-voting student member of the Transportation and Parking Commission, currently with a term commencing October 28th and concluding October 27, 2025.
That's the college student, right? If I'm
Yes.
understanding.
I'll second that.
Okay, so it's been moved by Commissioner Amirian, seconded by Commissioner Bonston to appoint a college student, sorry, I forgot the name,
Adira Mukhertichian.
Dira Mukhertichian to be our ex officio commissioner of TPC. So we move to voting, roll call. Okay, let's go ahead.
Commissioner Mirian,
Yes.
Commissioner Bonston,
Yes.
Commissioner Lester,
Yes.
Commissioner Ordubagian,
Yes.
Chair Avagian.
Yes. Okay, so what's next? 6B? Okay.
Item 6B, adoption of procedural rules of the Transportation and Parking Commission. Resolution adopting procedural rules for the Transportation and Parking Commission.
So Chair, I will be presenting this item. So here we have another housekeeping item. So as a way of background on this item, so the TPC was established to serve as the council's advisor on roadways, public parking, public transportation, vehicles for hire, transportation demand management, and transportation system management citywide. So as you guys are aware, it consists of 5 voting members and 2 student members who should be ex-official members who are non-voting members, which was just discussed. Additionally, pursuant to the municipal code, the commission may adopt from time to time such rules of procedures as it may deem necessary to properly exercise its powers and duties. All such rules shall be subject to prior approval of the city attorney and shall, after adoption, be kept in file in the office of the Traffic and Transportation Administrator, and copies therefore shall be available to the public upon request. Although the commission was established decades ago, neither the office of the city clerk nor the Department of Public Works can locate any records that the commission has to date adopted procedural rules pursuant to the municipal code. To that end, staff has prepared the attached procedural rules for the Transportation and Parking Commission, which is Exhibit 1 in the staff report, to establish policies and procedures that will guide the TPC members in discharging their duties. So as a brief summary, there are 5 articles in the resolution. Article 1 governs general provisions. Article 2 governs the officers. Article 3 governs the clerk of the commission. Article 4 governs the meetings. And lastly, Article 5 governs the meeting agenda and procedures. We'd be happy to answer, both the city attorney and I will be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Any questions?
Yes, Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Amirian.
So under Article 5, so it's Section 500, the agenda, subsection C, item for future agenda. So this language here requires that members of the commission suggest agenda items by communicating them to the chairperson, and then that the chairperson then will notify the clerk of the commission of matters to be placed on the agenda at least 2 weeks in advance of the commission meeting. Does this notification of the chairperson occur within the meeting, during the public meeting? And is there language that we can put into here that if we can get, the commission to agree on an agenda item for discussion, that we can just bypass then asking the chairperson to notify, staff separately 2 weeks in advance?
So Commissioner Marion, there could be a couple of different iterations. There could be a situation in which an item is suggested to the chair. Of course, the chair controls the conduct of the meeting, generally speaking. And it's suggested as a future agenda item for the clerk to put on the agenda. Alternatively, to your point, if during the course of the meeting, let's say during today's meeting, one of the commissioners requests or proposes a future agenda item, under this rule, if there were at least one more commissioner who had an interest in agendizing the matter for a future meeting, that would be enough to set it for a future agenda.
Excellent.
As
That's
a-
all, yeah, that's all I wanted to clarify.
Right, as an informational report or potentially as an action item, probably more likely be an informational report, but it could potentially be an action item under those circumstances, yes.
I have a follow-up question. So that is supposed to basically happen during the staff comments, or, so how do you get a second then?
So to be clear, the commission is not taking any action. There is a proposal or a suggestion to agendize a future matter. There isn't a vote. It would simply be a second commissioner expressing support to bring it back on a future agenda for an open noticed meeting.
Okay, so high-fiving, basically. Okay, got it. Okay, any other questions regarding this item?
Let's see. I think section 401, time and day of regular meetings. We are not the fourth Thursday. Am I misreading that?
Yeah, yes, that's a typo. We'll have to fix, we'll read that into the record, and it's the fourth Monday.
Thank you.
Okay,
And so if there were a motion to approve or to adopt the resolution, then it would be with the, we would recommend that it be with the notation that 401, section 401 be amended to reflect the meetings are on the fourth Monday.
I'm making a motion to approve it, but amending the section 4, okay,
401.
It's already in writing. We can do that on the fly.
got it. Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, so who's making the motion with the amendment?
Yeah, barring any questions, any further discussion, I'd like to make a motion accepting these procedures with the amendment suggested by Commissioner Brownstein, modifying Section 401 to say fourth Monday rather than fourth Thursday.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Moved by Commissioner Amirian, seconded by Commissioner Lester. Marina?
Commissioner Mirian,
Yes.
Commissioner Bonston,
Yes.
Commissioner Lester,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortebegian,
Yes.
Chair Avagian.
Yes. Okay, next item. Item 7, information report.
Review of applicable law and policy, Brown Act, Public Records Act, and City of Code of Conduct.
Good evening, Chair Avagi and members of the commission. I'm Aaron Israel. I'm your Senior Assistant City Attorney. And although I am personally aware that many of you have a long history of public service in the city of Glendale, this meeting, being Chair Avagian's first presiding, offered an opportunity to review the transparency laws established in the state of California, as well as the City Council's Code of Conduct. the Department of Public Works and the City Attorney's Office could not ascertain the last date that a presentation of this form was given to this commission. So we decided that a refresher would be in order. Certainly, at any point during the presentation, you're welcome to interrupt me with questions. It's timely as well in that the City Attorney's Office just delivered this very same presentation, or a very, very similar version of this presentation to the first meeting of the Charter Review Committee. So for any members of the public, this might be the second time they're hearing it. And so it'll be familiar territory to those who are engaged, civically engaged in the City of Glendale. So the laws I'm going to be discussing tonight are the Ralph M. Brown Act, which is California's Open Meetings Law, and the California Public Records Act, which is California's Sunshine Act as it relates to public records, as well as the City of Glendale's Code of Conduct, which was adopted by the City Council. The Brown Act works in conjunction with the Public Records Act to promote transparency in government. The Public Records Act ensures that the public has access to documents, and the Brown Act ensures that the government's business is conducted at open and public meetings with very few exceptions. Although the Brown Act was adopted approximately 70 years ago, two overriding principles have not changed. Those are stated here. I won't quote them bothly, but the foundation for both is that actions taken by public bodies, including expressly named public commissions in the Brown Act, should be taken openly, and that deliberation shall be conducted openly. The purpose of the Brown Act, as I said, is to ensure that decision-making processes of legislative bodies of local agencies are conducted in public and open to public scrutiny, except where the legislature has expressly provided exceptions. Under the Brown Act, legislative bodies may not meet to discuss, hear, or deliberate on matters within their subject matter jurisdiction unless they do so at an open notice meeting. When meeting, legislative bodies may only discuss, hear, or deliberate on matters described on the agenda. We discussed this briefly earlier in relation to 6A. And legislative bodies must allow the public to attend and address matters on the agenda, or matters not on the agenda, but otherwise within the legislative body's subject matter jurisdiction. The Brown Act applies to all legislative bodies of a local agency. Within the City of Glendale, those bodies are the City Council as the city's governing body, and all commissions, boards, or committees created by formal action of the City Council, which includes the Transportation and Parking Commission. The Brown Act applies to meetings. A meeting is defined as a congregation of a majority of the members of the legislative body at the same time and place to hear, discuss, or deliberate or take action on an item within their subject matter jurisdiction. There are exceptions to meetings when a majority of you can congregate outside of an open noticed meeting. A conference or similar gathering that is open to the public, community meetings that are not organized by the city, an open and noticed meeting of another legislative body of the same local agency or another local agency. So for instance, if a majority of you opted to attend a city council meeting, that's separately agendized as an open noticed meeting. A social or ceremonial occasions, or individual contacts amongst members of the body. The serial meeting problem. Use of direct communication, personal intermediaries, or technological devices employed by a majority of the legislative body to develop a collective concurrence as to action to be taken on an item prohibited by the legislative body. So, a serial meeting is a series of communications which, taken as a whole, involve a majority. And are used to develop concurrence, to facilitate an agreement, to advance an ultimate resolution of an issue, or clarify your understanding of an issue outside of an open noticed meeting. And this commonly happens in one of two ways. Either the daisy chain, where member A speaks to member B, who then speaks to member C about a particular matter in which they form a collective concurrence about how that matter is going to go before the commission. Or the hub and spoke model, which can be facilitated amongst commission members or by staff. So this is what the daisy chain looks like. This is what the hub and spoke model looks like, where member A goes to member B, and then member A goes to member C and shares the discussions amongst the members. As I said, where B talks to C. How do serial meetings happen? They can happen in person, by phone, by email, in writing, like I said, through the use of intermediaries, including staff, or on social networking sites such as Facebook and Twitter, and I'll talk about that separately in just a minute. Social media platforms. A member of a legislative body may not respond directly to any communication posted or shared by another member on a social media platform that is open to and accessible to the public regarding agency business on an internet platform. So this would include if one of you posted a comment on a social media platform and another member were to give it a thumbs up or to post an emoji in response to it, any expressive conduct, that would be a violation of AB 992, which is part of the amended Brown Act. However, each of you may answer questions posed by members of the public on social media, provide information to the public, or solicit information from the public in the discharge of your duties on social media. And now this applies only if the platform is open and public, meaning it's free to all members, there's no blocking access or private pages. That's when you can engage in that sort of informational exchange. Social media tips. Do not make a commitment on an item that is certain or likely to come before the body as a whole in an open notice meeting. Keep information general on upcoming matters. Do not chat with other members. That's expressly prohibited by the legislation I just mentioned. Expressing an opinion by posting, liking, sharing, or commenting is a violation. Be cautious about taking a position or contributing content that expresses your position. On email tips, you may receive email communications from staff. On occasion, if I or one of my colleagues in the city attorney's office is providing a legal opinion or advice to you, refrain from replying all in emails. Do not take a position or make a commitment, and ensure make sure that your emails otherwise comply with applicable law. Types of meetings. Most often this commission will meet based upon regular meetings where 72 hours prior notice must be provided under the Brown Act. That's why you hear the city clerks or the commission clerks report that the agenda was posted a certain amount of time before the meeting outside of City Hall. There may be occasions, because this commission meets bi-monthly, where you may need to have a special meeting outside of the 6 regularly scheduled meetings. That would require 24 hours prior notice under the Brown Act. It's very unlikely, but it is possible that the commission might have a need to meet on an emergency basis. That would be called without notice if necessary. Agendas must contain a brief general description of each item to be discussed or addressed. And so that's that the public has an opportunity to engage with you on matters that you're going to take up at your meeting. No action may be taken or discussed on items not appearing on the agenda. Officials or staff may briefly respond, may refer the matter to staff, or seek to have the matter placed on a future agenda. And again, this is this comment is intended mainly with regard to oral communications from members of the public, that you can briefly engage with a member of the public who comes to address you on a matter not on the agenda, or who comes to address you on a matter on the agenda but deviates from the topic. You can direct staff to follow up at a separate time. But it's not the agendized business before the commission. That's why discussion must be limited on those matters. By a 2/3 vote, you can add to the agenda if needed for add an item to the agenda if there's a need for immediate action after the agenda was posted. Again, this would be pretty rare before the Transportation and Parking Commission, but it is possible that it would come up.
May I
Commissioner
ask a
Boston?
question? Given that we're a 5-member board, doing the math of 2/3 vote, can you clarify?
4 members, Commissioner Monston.
Thank you.
And just following up on that, what's the definition of need for immediate action? So like, just seeing this right now, let's play a hypothetical game. I know city attorneys love hypotheticals. But going back to our discussion earlier about potentially amending the resolution, could we have had a vote placing that on the agenda to amend the date today and then addressed it?
The term need would contemplate some exigency, Commissioner Marion.
Excellent. So in that scenario that I'm pointing out, there wasn't like a need.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions before I continue? Okay. The commission, no legislative body can require conditional attendance. What that means under the Brown Act is that we cannot require members of the public to provide their name before addressing the body, to provide any other information or to complete a questionnaire in order to bring business before the legislative body. The public must have the opportunity to address you on general issues of interest within the subject matter jurisdiction during oral communications or during public comment if there's an agenda item. And the public must have an opportunity to address you before or during consideration of the item. That means before you take up deliberations, before you're considering a motion, that's the appropriate time to take up public comments. The resolution that you just adopted on procedural rules, which took effect immediately, generally sets or contemplates 5 minutes of speaking time for matters not on the agenda, 3 minutes of speaking time for matters on the agenda. However, the chair maintains the discretion to limit time if there is a need, given, for instance, a large number of speakers in order to control the agenda, to control the conduct of the meeting. Otherwise, it would need to be, the time would need to be set equitably so that all members of the public have the same opportunity to address the body. There are exceptions, which are not in my PowerPoint, but I think it bears worth mentioning that if a non-native English speaker wishes to address the body, that person receives double the allotted time. So if it's 2 minutes, that person receives 4 minutes. If it's 3 minutes, that person receives 6 minutes. And it also bears worth noting that any exchanges between the commission and members of the public toll the time. It means it stops the clock. It does not count toward their overall time. So if one of the members of the commission were to ask a clarifying question, the time it takes to answer the question, or ask the question, and the time it takes to answer the question is not subtracted from the total allotment of time for that person. Teleconference meetings. So under the Brown Act, this is what's called a traditional teleconference meeting. We might remember this, the very first meeting of this commission, which I staffed with my colleague Sylvia. Commissioner Avagian was out of the country, and these are the procedures that we followed for that meeting. A quorum of the commission must participate in Glendale. Public and ADA access and comment must be afforded at each location. Agenda must be, I'm going to skip over this one. Agendas must be properly posted at teleconference locations and open to the public. So when Chair Avagian was out of the country, the agenda had to be posted physically, and members of the public had to have the opportunity to attend where and when she was remotely participating. Participation may be made by video or audio, and all votes must be taken by roll call. It also bears worth noting, and it's not on the slide, that if there's a teleconference meeting pursuant to the traditional teleconferencing provisions, the address of each location must be posted. So a question that frequently arises is, if there is a desire to have a teleconference meeting where a member's participating from home, that person's home address would need to be posted publicly on the agenda. And that person's home would have to be made available to members of the public who wish to attend the meeting, if it's under this provision. I can tell some of you look a little uncomfortable with that prospect, but that's
I've
what
gone
that,
through this all.
that's what that provision would contemplate. But there are also remote meetings under the Just Cause and Emergencies provision. This is a different set of procedures. This is where there is a member who has an emergency circumstance or wishes to assert just cause to participate remotely. I'll go through that in just a moment, but in that case, the address does not need to be publicly agendized from where that commissioner is attending. A quorum must still be in a physical single location in the city of Glendale. The public must be allowed to attend and comment remotely. All votes must be taken by roll call. The remote attending member must participate by video and audio versus just by video or audio. This is limited in in a body that meets less than 10 times per year, which would be the Transportation and Parking Commission, only 2 meetings per year can operate under this provision. The member who is participating remotely must disclose the presence of anyone 18 years of age or older. And it's only in 2 situations, just cause or an emergency circumstance. Just cause is if a member wishes to participate remotely and has a reason to do that, that member could articulate to the rest of the commission right up to the beginning of that meeting why they need to participate remotely. The rest of the commission does not have to vote on it. The member just asserts it as their just cause. The remaining commissioners don't have a vote on that, so to speak. But under the emergency provision, if there's a personal emergency, let's say a family circumstance that one member wants to participate remotely, it still needs to be stated, but the rest of the commission has to vote to accept the emergency.
So just cause and being outside of the country, so being outside of the country does not consider a just cause, basically.
This is contemplating, Commissioner Vagin, and I don't want to say it's an exceptional circumstance. It's not an exceptional circumstance necessarily. But the traditional teleconferencing provision for let's say a pre-planned absence where you're otherwise available is appropriate. So that was under that circumstance, that was the appropriate use of the Brown Act's teleconferencing provisions.
Okay, accepted.
So by way of example, the next slide explains it. Just cause, a caregiving need, a contagious illness, or travel for city business are examples. As I said, you must notify the legislative body in advance, right up until the start of that meeting, but additional public disclosure isn't required. Emergency, is a family-based medical emergency. That's really what the provision contemplates, and it must be described generally to the rest of the commission, and they must vote to approve that absence and the use of remote technology for teleconferencing purposes. Before I switch to the Public Records Act, any remaining questions on the Brown Act? Okay. Because again, I know several of you have been in public service in the city for a while. I'm giving the summary version. I'm trying to go through it as efficiently as possible. But again, feel free to interrupt me. Public records are any writings containing information related to the conduct of the public's business that are prepared, owned, used, or retained by any state or local agency, regardless of physical form or characteristics. So, by way of example, text messages can be public records, emails are public records, faxes, to the extent we still use them, are public records, certainly tangible documents. Videos, Instagram posts and comments, tweets. There are exemptions to public disclosure under the Public Records Act. Drafts or preliminary notes or memoranda not retained in the ordinary course of business. Hopefully it goes without saying, attorney-client privilege records, and those records where there's a right to privacy. Social Security information, never disclosable. Personal information should be redacted. Things like a home address, a personal telephone number would be information subject to redaction in an otherwise disclosable document. So if the city were responding to a Public Records Act request, those were the type of things that we would redact before, that the city would redact before it were disclosed, but the record would otherwise be disclosed. Responding to a request, state law requires that the city facilitate disclosure, essentially enable requesters to provide requesters information and assistance to make effective, focused requests. They have access to inspect records during normal business hours of the city. The city must provide records promptly, but has 10 days to determine if documents are public records, and may extend that time up to 14 additional days in limited circumstances. And to be clear, this maximum 24-day window is to determine whether the city has disclosable records and intends to produce them, not necessarily to complete full production. Oftentimes, Public Records Act requests seek voluminous sets of records that cannot practicably be disclosed in 24 days, but we are nevertheless required to notify our requesters whether we have responsive documents and whether or not we intend to produce them within this time frame. If only part of a record is being disclosed, then the record is redacted to remove the exempt portion, as we just discussed with personal with personal identifying information. Before I move on to the City Council's Code of Conduct, any questions regarding the Public Records Act? Okay. Code of Conduct established by the City Council applies both to that body and to all of its appointed boards and commissions. It sets forth what is and what is not acceptable behavior and conduct. Conduct with each other, honor the role of the chair, practice civility and decorum, and avoid personal comments that could offend other members, and demonstrate effective problem-solving approaches. Conduct with the public. In public meetings, be welcoming to speakers and treat them with care and gentleness. Engage in active listening, keep an open mind, and questions for clarification are okay, but avoid debate or argument with members of the public. And this ties into the Brown Act as well, with matters that are outside the scope of what is on an agenda for an open notice meeting. Conduct with staff. Treat all staff as professionals. Poor behavior towards staff is not acceptable. Do not disrupt city staff from their jobs, and never publicly criticize an individual employee in a public meeting. Do not get involved in administrative functions. Do not solicit political support from staff. No attorney-client relationship with individual members. So just pausing here because this is what falls within my bailiwick. The attorney-client relationship is between the city attorney and his assistants and deputies and the city of Glendale as a municipal corporation. I don't have an attorney-client relationship with each of you. However, I'm assigned as staff to the commission as a whole, and in that context provide legal advice and opinions to you, which I can do both in an open notice meeting and in confidential communications. Again, those would be one-way communications where I provide you a written attorney-client privileged opinion or memorandum, either in writing or via email. Boards and commissions, when you have requests for information, please go through your department liaisons. Personal conduct generally, please use business-like behavior. Abusive, insulting, or profane conduct will not be tolerated. No physical or verbal abuse. Attend and be prepared for meetings and provide advance notification of necessary absences. Participate in meeting deliberations. Please do not ask staff or direct employees to spend time on non-city business. Probably goes without saying, do not engage in criminal activities. Do not engage in conflicts of interest or incompatible offices. Maintain confidentiality where appropriate. And do not engage in conduct that would violate federal, state, or local anti-discrimination laws. Do not drink alcohol or use illicit substances during public meetings. Do not drink alcohol prior to public meetings if it is reasonably likely that the amount of alcohol or the time between the consumption and the meeting would cause you to exceed your legal limits or impair your judgment or decision-making abilities. And avoid the appearance of drinking alcoholic beverages during public meetings. Sometimes non-alcoholic beverages can be mistaken for public beverages by members of the public. And conduct with the media. Members of boards and commissions are not authorized to represent the city outside of official meetings without the express approval of the City Council. Social media use, we covered this in the Brown Act context, but disclose that opinions you provide on social media are your own and do not represent the city's official position. Avoid the use of social media as a conduit to communicate in violation of the Brown Act. And as we discussed with AB 992, do not respond directly to another member's post or comment on social media. And that doesn't just have to be in writing, but it can be a like or dislike or emoji. And enforcement, with respect to members of boards and commissions, enforcement.
Question actually
Sure,
about
Chair
the, if we can go back to the back one more slide. This one that says that you don't represent the city outside of the official meetings without the approval of the City Council. So if you're invited to present something or, I don't know, give an interview or whatever, you have to go to the City Council to be approved to present the city perspective.
So if you're being asked to speak on behalf of the city, or you are intending to speak on behalf of the city to represent the position of the city, yes, the City Council would need to give its authorization. If you intend to attend a function in your personal capacity, and the fact that you are an appointed member of the chair of the Transportation and Parking Commission is for identification purposes only, but is not being used to represent the city's position, but you're only your own personal view, then I don't believe that that's the type of conduct that this policy contemplates.
Got it now. Okay, thank you.
And just briefly in conclusion, enforcement of the code of conduct is through either removal by council from your position on the Transportation and Parking Commission or any other board or commission you might sit on, a censure by the council, or action by the Transportation and Parking Commission itself. That's my review of the Brown Act, the Public Records Act, and the city's Code of Conduct. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Otherwise, I will turn it back to the chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions, comments?
Just really appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. I kept saying that I'm familiar with the Brown Act before I took the position, but you guys made it hard on me today, I'll admit it. And then this review was very helpful. Thank you very much. So what should we do? We're moving to the next item, right? Which is item number 8.
Oral
Oral
communication. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. The commission may question the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. There are currently no public comments at this time.
Okay, let's move to next item, which is number 9, commission staff comments, updates, and number A. Line.
Availability of commissioners for next regular meeting of the Transportation and Parking Commission on December 23rd, 2024.
I would like to ask if possible to move that date to January if we agree. So if anyone else has.
I agree. December 25th is kind of a, yeah. So if it is possible, can we do it earlier or maybe later?
So Chair, if I may, so this is an item that was presented by staff. Typically, we will canvass the commission to determine availability, but because it's a regular scheduled meeting, we agendize it just to get the commission's input. Obviously, it's a special meeting, as was described in terms of what our process is. We would notice the meeting appropriately, but we can go before, we can go after. It's really at the discretion of the commission. So for the sake of continuity, if they want the December meeting, we can obviously move it up. But if not, we can obviously push it to January. It's really up to the commission and your availability.
Sure. Can you remind us what is the special meeting for?
So what it's used for, or specifically for this?
For this particular December meeting? Do we have an agenda for December 24th? That's just a regular meeting, yeah.
Yes, it's a regular meeting. So we did confirm with staff that there is items, but that can be held over. We obviously received direction today about an update to the resolution. So obviously we can work with the city attorney's office. If it's in December, we should have sufficient time to prepare that staff report. So obviously that item can come before the commission in the earlier part of December, if that's what the commission's. So we do have some items for your consideration, but it could also be deferred. But if you, like you mentioned, if we want to get the student commissioners involved, that's an opportunity to do that in December as well. So it's really up to the commission. Staff's prepared to bring items back.
I will not be able to attend any meeting in December, so if we're moving a date, I would kindly ask if possible to move it to January. Sorry, Commissioner Mirian, you had something to say?
No, that answered my question. I was going to ask if there were any dates you had available for us in December to consider, but considering that feedback, what would the date look like in terms of January? Would you just canvass once you've determined some prospective dates in January, or do you have some prospective dates in January we can consider now?
So there is no preferred date from a staff perspective. Obviously, coming back after the new year, just to give staff more sufficient time, I would say from the 13th on, because staff does tend to take time off during the holidays. However, if that's the commission's decision, we would have to obviously post the agenda prior. If we do it on the 6th, we'd have to post it earlier that week, so we have to ensure staff is available to post it. But if we choose, if the commission chooses to go to the 13th, 20th, or 27th, we should have sufficient time and staff available to post and to present.
Is the 20th a city holiday of January?
I'll confirm that right now.
Martin Luther King.
Do we have to decide on a date today? Sorry, I think I missed that part, or,
We don't. Obviously, you guys are all here, so you guys could look at your calendar, which is why we agendized it. However, we can follow our normal process. We can send it on email and just try to canvas that way. But I mean, since you guys are here, which is the reason for the.
and then also, it doesn't have to be Monday, correct? Because we're moving the date, so it can be any other week of the day. I mean, obviously not Tuesday, unless it's a dark day for a city council, but it doesn't have to be Monday.
And of course, I would just suggest to the commission that because there are other boards and commission meetings that staff may not have, and certainly I do not have the dates for January. It does not have to be Chair Avagian on that specific date. We know certainly that the fourth Monday of the month this space is available for the commission every other month. But outside of that, I can't speak to the availability of the space, and I don't know if staff has those, either the clerk or the director have those dates available. So I would just put that to you that perhaps you can suggest a date or dates, but it might require confirmation of availability.
Then since Director Hernandez mentioned any day, basically not any day, but a day after January 13, and Commissioner Bonston suggested 20th, why don't we go ahead and check the availability for 20th? No, she said January 20th, Martin
Actually,
Luther King Day.
just to clarify, neither, I suggested the 20th might be a holiday because
Okay.
of Martin Luther King.
So
So
for the for clarification, it is a city observed holiday, so I apologize. The 20th is not available.
How about January 27th?
So like as mentioned by our city attorney, it does show that it's available. So that date should work, but in the event that it isn't, we can obviously provide an update to the commission. But the 27th does appear to be available.
Are we good for that day? Okay,
that works with my calendar.
okay, then let's go ahead and move with the 27th. Do we have to make a motion, vote on this, set the date? No?
You do not need a motion. You can do it without objection. You can just say without objection, that's the preferred date of the
Okay,
commission.
so without objection, our next meeting is set to be held on January 27 of 2025. Okay, let's move to the.
I have some comments.
Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I was gonna actually continue with the comments and updates. Go ahead, Commissioner Amirian.
So the first comment that I would like to make is regarding an issue that I've mentioned before in my comments, and I would love to get some support to agendize this matter. And it has to do with a couple of issues. One is the manner in which parking signs in the city are changed in terms of their enforcement hours and enforcement dates. I noted during the July 22nd meeting that I noticed that there were signs on Brand Boulevard that were changed to block out the small print that said Sundays and holidays exempted, that the Sunday had been, covered over basically on the signs. And I noticed this because I noticed there were cars parked there and that there were agents, parking enforcement officials ticketing those cars. And what I had mentioned was how is that determination made? And what if any jurisdiction does the Transportation and Parking Commission have over those decisions? What would trigger it coming before the commission, if anything? But considering that we are the Transportation and Parking Commission, I think that that is an important issue for us to get some information about. And following up on that, similarly, I brought this directly to the attention of Director Hernandez, and I did let him know that I intended to bring it up in the public meeting. I witnessed an exchange in a parking lot where an individual parked his car, walked over to the parking meter, paid for parking, and then he saw that a parking official was ticketing his car. So he interacted with the parking official, and I inquired, as a curious bystander, like witnessing a parking incident occurring in the wild. I approached the individual and I said, "Hey, what happened?" And he let me know that he had paid for parking at the meter, received his receipt, and then the parking official wrote a ticket on his car. And when he approached the parking official and showed him his receipt, showing that it was 2 minutes prior to when the citation had been written, the parking official told him to protest the ticket. And I found that extremely troubling for various reasons. Number one, why is there a lag or time delay between when somebody pays for parking and when the officer is writing citations? Considering 21st century technology, I don't think there should be a 2-minute lag between that. Number two, why isn't a parking official, when confronted immediately with a receipt showing that the parking was paid for, why aren't they, number one, tearing up that ticket or canceling that citation? And if they aren't empowered to, I believe that's a circumstance that they should probably be empowered to do so, because what this results in is an individual, a taxpayer, or a visitor to the city, being required to go through a process, an appeal process that unnecessarily adds time and stress to them, and also unnecessarily uses up resources of the city. My understanding, based upon looking at it, that it was probably a third-party processor that the city engages, but I would love to get information on how that system works, and why I strongly believe if I witness something, as an individual in a city of 200,000 people, that it's probably not the first time it's ever happened. It's not the exception to the rule. And so how many times is this happening? How many times are individuals being ticketed inappropriately and then forcing both the individual ticketed and the appeals process to spend time and money and energy on something that probably shouldn't have happened in the first place or could have been addressed immediately? I'm curious about whether or not the third-party parking officials are, how they're compensated on the tickets that they write, whether or not there is motivation for them to write as many tickets as possible. So information regarding those two things, parking signs, how parking signs are posted, because my understanding with parking enforcement, generally speaking in the city, is that it's supposed to be prohibitive, not punitive. And it kind of feels punitive in the sense that parking tickets now in the city are like $56, and then if you don't respond in some ridiculously short amount of time to them, they go up, they double. And so I don't think the city council views parking tickets as a revenue generator. And if they do, you can correct me on that, and then I'll go and talk in front of the city council and tell them that they shouldn't be, using parking tickets as a way to generate revenue from their citizens. The point of parking prohibitions are to make sure that cars don't park and just leave their cars all day, so that there's a turnover and businesses can be visited by a number of people. And so there's a small fee that we impose as a city, in order to have an orderly kind of turnover of limited parking resources. That's my understanding. And so I'd love to get some information regarding those two matters, and I'd love support from the commission on agendizing that, in a timely manner so that we can get information on that. So that's my first kind of comment and request.
May I make a comment?
Sure, go ahead.
You're absolutely right. I think the reason I can very much involved in parking task force that we have one in Montrose. About 10, 12 years ago, we created an ad hoc committee as parking task force for Montrose because we had the same problems. Lack of parking, people park all day, and we had questions about signage. And so anyway, we started the parking task force about, if I'm not mistaken, 12 years ago, which I'm asking Director Hernandez to be on our next parking task force in Montrose so we can clarify. I think one of the things that City of Glendale lacking right now is the same thing that you mentioned. People don't know where they can get some answers regarding signage, regarding parking, and you're absolutely right. Those are all third-party staff that it's been hired by City of Glendale to go ahead and enforce parking tickets. Now, I completely agree with you. I think if city wants to do a better job not having incidents like this happening to our citizens, we do need to make it ad hoc parking. My experience in this has been, as I said, 10, 12 years. I can tell you what we have accomplished, and it's very useful. People actually can reach out to us and tell us there were ticketing over here, or this signage are not adequate, or why are we doing this? And then there was a way of us conveying our message to all of our members and all of our residents that at these times, these signs are going to be replaced. And we were the first one who actually adopted the parking sensors, the QR codes in Montrose, and then after that it got implemented throughout the city. And because the city didn't have enough money to replace those old meters, so city, by our recommendation, they reached out to this company and they put all those things. So those ad hoc committees actually can be very useful. And there'll be a place that basically there'll be a liaison between the City of Glendale and all the other agencies. So for example, the third parties, we do tell them, do not, for example, if our citizens say that, listen, we thought that the sign, it says that you can park over here and you ticketed us, we then reach out to the third party. We reach out to the city staff that are in contact with those third parties and tell them, do not ticket at this place till we figure it out. So one of the programs, for example, we have over there are employee parkings, which it's a huge problem here in City of Glendale as well, and it doesn't get addressed. So we are working on that to set up a place saying that all of the businesses, the merchants and the residents come by to us and tell us, where can we park, so it won't be any imposition on other people, so our visitors can come by and meet with us. There's so many good information that it works out between. So there's gotta be an entity that works between the City of Glendale and the staff that actually hires. I don't know who hires those third-party people. Is it like an agency within the City of Glendale, or you guys just tell them to just go ahead and hire these people? It needs to be driven by the people, the stakeholders that actually want to make the parking situation better, not worse, as Commissioner Amirian mentioned before. So we want to make sure that it's something that whoever comes to visit City of Glendale, they feel that, there are rules and regulations and there are signage that they can rely on, And if there's an issue, they can reach out to somebody. None of these things are available right now at City of Glendale. So I think we have a model in Montrose. We can definitely implement it in City of Glendale. It will be beneficial, and everybody will be, able to benefit from it. We can
Follow-up
direct it.
question, aren't parking attendants hired by the City of Glendale directly?
That is correct. So we currently use SP Plus, which is contracted through our procurement process. But we're happy to provide all that detail when that comes back.
So third party here comes basically just to use their technology for the processing of the payment and stuff, I guess.
Yeah, one of the things, for example, they had is that they have these new cars with the cameras. So instead of chalking your tires, they actually go by license plates. So they know how many people, all the stuff. I have been involved with 3 studies for parkings. So we wanted to know at what time, who comes over here. Is it employees? Are these people residents? Are these people? So their process is going through, which is really, really beneficial. So we can implement it in City of Glendale. And the reason I was going to ask Director Hernandez to participate in our next meeting is to find out what the dynamic of this is. Maybe we can hopefully implement it in City of Glendale so everybody can benefit. It's very useful. And all the studies that has been done, it's in a way that makes it easy for everybody. Now, if you do visit Montrose right now, you see there are parking spots that are available. There are lots that it's extremely full, so people are suffering. We're trying to keep balance. That could be transferred to City of Glendale as well.
The meeting open, can I participate too?
Well, that's only for the association, but I'll see if I can have you attend. If you have some information, let us set that up with Director Hernandez, that I can have him bring it over to you, and then you can, see if it'll be beneficial for City of Glendale. It's extremely useful, even for the signage. I mean, we noticed there are streets that people drive the wrong way. So we reached out to our committee. We called them up. We said, we need signs here, 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 and these are the things. They immediately showed up, and they said, okay, we're going to change the signage. Or we wanted to tell people there are parkings available in certain areas. There's no signage available, so they did accommodate us. We can do the same thing here downtown Glendale to make it easier for people to commute. It'll be good for bicyclists. It will be good for cars. It'll be good for people who use public transportation. Right now, there's a huge signage shortage in Glendale, huge. And people don't know what to do. They just, they think that if they have parking buildings, they can just go park in there. It's just not easy. So I think these meetings that we have a live example that it's been 12 years old. We can, digest it, and we can have some sort of a sample of it and then pass it on to City of Glendale. Maybe we can later on set up an ad hoc committee and then go from there and implement it throughout City of Glendale.
Yeah, I appreciate the support on that. And just to confirm, does that mean that item, the informational request regarding both the signs and parking enforcement, and the information that I requested, that is now technically, it meets the threshold for being agendized for future meetings?
If Commissioner Ortabagian, I understood Commissioner Ortabagian's comments to be expressing support for bringing the item back informationally, but maybe he can confirm that.
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent. Yeah, just wanted to confirm that so that, if necessary, I can ask for that support. I appreciate it. I think it would be helpful. And then secondary comment, I'm sure the commission knows we were notified that that there was an appeal to our decision on July 22nd.
Yes.
And so I did want to both ask a couple of questions regarding that and give some comments to the city council. I watched that meeting. The question is for Director Hernandez. So I know that you appealed the decision of the commission, as the Director of Public Works. What I'm curious about is how I'm relatively new to the Transportation and Parking Commission, and in my work on the audit committee, there wasn't really, appeals and things like that. How common has it been on the Transportation and Parking Commission to have commission decisions be appealed not by a member of the public, but by a member of staff?
So just one point of clarification for the commission. So it was a notice for intent to appeal, so that it formally hasn't been appealed just yet. So, but you are correct, Commissioner Miriam. I did submit a notice of intent to appeal, and that was what was presented to the City Council. Unfortunately, they did not make a decision. It seemed they were deadlocked, so the item will return on the 5th of November. But to answer your question of how common it's not very common, right? Ultimately, and deliberating with staff, based on my determination, working with the City Attorney's Office, we determined because of the amount of effort that has been put into traffic calming efforts in that area over the past, since 2022, we felt that it would be appropriate at least to get that in front of the City Council and have them make that determination whether they would hear the appeal, return the item back to the TBC, or just uphold the decision. So right now, it's in the City Council's hand for their consideration, whether to set that public hearing or not.
And I appreciate that. I want to communicate, as I communicated to you and to staff in my email. The questions that I ask during commission meetings are for the purpose of actual learning and clarification. I'm seeking out the ability to inform and contextualize the decisions I'm making and the future questions that I might ask. And they're in that spirit. And I appreciate so much the excellent work that your staff does. Commissioner Bronstein and I had an opportunity to experience that during the student selection committee, and I know how much work goes into the things that you prepare for these meetings. That it's not an insignificant amount of work. I do hope that the City Council chooses to remand this back to the board, because I saw the comments that were made, and I know that some of the council members asked regarding what the TPC's potential role is, because I do think, based upon what I heard you say, Director Hernandez, I do think that you have answers to some of the questions that I asked, and that would help clarify my abstention in that case. And I also think that some of those clarifications might convince the commission to reconsider their votes once they have a totality of the information. Generally speaking, I believe it's really important for commissions and staff to work in a collaborative manner together. We're all trying to accomplish the same things here, and I think there's a purpose that the Transportation and Parking Commission and other commissions serve, and that's not to just send things back to council and then add to their already substantial plate. I also understand what the process is and that appeal exists for a reason. But considering that it is rare and it's an exception, I do know that there's a lot of interest within the community regarding traffic calming measures in that community, and I imagine that the community members it was in their prerogative as well to file that appeal. So I just wanted to make that comment because I think it's important notwithstanding, the past year that I've been on this commission and some of the disagreements that we've had about, bike policies as a whole, I do think that we as a commission can come to a consensus like we did today on important issues, and discuss these things in a manner that is, cordial and prepared, to have disagreeing opinions on, but coming to a consensus feels pretty good. And even if we do disagree, that's okay for us to disagree. It doesn't change, how I feel about working with each of you individually. And so I would hope also that there's an opportunity to keep that in mind in the future. I understand that appeals are open to both staff and the public, and that this was a notice to appeal. But I would hope we keep that in mind, because what occurs when a notice to appeal like that happens, the language in that suggests that the commissioners who voted no individually were wrong in their determination of their vote. And
Commissioner Marion?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
I understand your comments to be procedural in nature. Just two quick comments. Number one is that currently the Transportation and Parking Commission is divested of jurisdiction to talk about the substance, the merits of the proposed all-way stop. And I would caution the commission to avoid discussing the merits, since it is possible that the city council will remand it back to the commission. So procedural comments generally fine, but I would caution the commission to avoid discussion on the merits, since it might come back to you for reconsideration.
Got it. I just want to make sure, and I appreciate that comment, because we don't want follow-up comments that go, this is what I think about the specific issue.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure that my comments aren't, thank you. So, just to kind of wrap up, I really appreciate that, because there might have been follow-up comments, and I'm being very, very careful to just talk about the generality. Generally speaking, I think that it undermines the role of the commission and the feeling of collegiality and collaborative sense when that sort of button is pressed. And I would just hope that in the future, before pushing that red button, that all other avenues to address the perceived defunct or like lack of what you perceive would be exercised. I think it makes sense. I believe that my fellow commissioners, are the types of people that, are like, there's no offense here. It's just a general comment about, how this goes, because I enjoy working with you and your staff. I think you and your staff are extremely professional, and I think that we all serve a role here, and that there are ways to kind of discuss these our roles and have some feedback with each other that don't necessarily involve, calling out the judgment of specific commissioners on a particular issue. So those are my comments. I appreciate, by the way, the work that we've done together, and I appreciate that this meeting was an example of us being able to come to, consensus on items that are still important. I mean, we didn't talk about bikes, but even if we are going to talk about bikes and things that are, very heavily and passionately regarded as it regards to transportation and parking, I think there are opportunities for us to work in the same manner that we've demonstrated today and prior to this meeting, and come to come to consensuses that lead to us continuing to work collegially with staff and do our job, what we were empowered by by the City Council to do. And I appreciate the opportunity, Chair, to give my comments on that.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Maybe just a question that's kind of related to the discussion, but it's just regarding the powers to staff, the powers of this commission. My understanding is like our role is to advise council. But there are, like you're referring to, times when we get items that we actually vote on. We make the decision, like what was just referred to. And I've never been totally clear on how that's decided. Like, what is going to be something we vote on, a recommendation to go to council versus, hey, you're voting for a speed bump and this is the vote. This is it, you know? And I mean, my assumption was that it had to do with maybe the scale of the project, cost of the project, and potentially the controversy. You know, we're all, we're appointees, we're volunteers. And some questions, I assumed, had to do with, they would go to council because these are the people's voted representatives. Is that correct?
So just for clarification, in terms of your question, are you asking specifically to this item or just in generality?
It was more of a general question since we were asked not to talk specifically about something that's not in our jurisdiction. Just like, is there any policy about what specifically we vote on as a final decision as opposed to what is passed forward to the elected officials to vote on?
So in the municipal code, the powers and responsibilities are outlined. But there are times where we bring items, and it's very common when we bring as a form of outreach, we'll bring, say, some of the projects that we have so that we could get the opinion of the commission and then take that to the council. So that's really more for feedback relative to approval, right? Because the commission is just giving their opinion on the outreach that was done or the preferred alternative. We have done that for the bike lanes, but that's just as part of our outreach efforts to show that the TPC has shown a preference to this alternative, or we've given information on our feedback, and we move that forward to the city council. But relative to some specific items, the council has empowered the commission to make certain decisions, like our neighborhood traffic calming items. So those just strictly stay at the commission, and then we implement in the field.
Right, okay, thank you very much. I mean, again, not to talk about the specifics of the thing, but there are cases where there's a considerable amount of kind of friction or disagreement, not necessarily here on the dais, but in the community, right? And I wondered if that had anything to do with what level the problem will be finally decided at. You know, that it seemed relevant to this discussion.
So unfortunately, I mean, the council is going to make the determination whether they hear the item and then if they make the determination to hear the item, obviously it would be open to a public hearing, so folks could speak on whether they're in favor or against the appeal. Staff will be presenting much of the similar information that was presented at the commission meeting on the 22nd with some additional facts. But for the most part, it's really up to the city council in what direction they want to move forward with.
Thank you.
And I had a comment and maybe a question too. I think that's a really good question. And I do think, so that the municipal code would lay out that distinction, not based on controversy, although sometimes you can also kind of write in, like, someone can make a determination based on certain things, whether something gets elevated. But whatever we review is predetermined based on the code as to the type of decision, not other factors. But I do think would be helpful, like maybe to ask in the agenda, how is that distinguished? Because I think there have been times when we were confused whether we were making a decision or a recommendation. And is that in the agenda? Is that listed differently?
The agenda specifically does not outline that, but I think we can make an effort in the staff report to kind of indicate what the next steps are.
I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I could, obviously, I'll defer to staff in discussing this, but I don't suspect that being an issue. But we could, for the commission's sake, kind of outline what the next steps are or how it relates to the municipal code and what the commission is actually undertaking.
Any other comments?
I just want
questions?
to make one last comment on this subject. I just don't want to go to the details and everything else. But when a subject comes before the commission and they're asking our opinion, I think we need to have the complete understanding of the situation. And we got to be able to hear from both sides of the aisle to find out exactly what is the problem and what measures are we planning on taking to calm the traffic in a specific neighborhood. On the last thing, this subject that came in front of us, I personally wasn't really convinced that, you know, we have done. Although I want to thank you and your staff, they did a fantastic job. I even attended the street. Two of the city staff, they showed up. I wanted to educate myself to find out exactly what is it that I'm voting on? Is it, what kind of an implications does it have? Or what are the ramifications of certain things would have on the neighborhood? What I would ask you is that when a subject like this comes along, I think we need a better outreach. We need a better understanding of what is it going to happen to the neighborhood? Are there any other obstacles that, why would there be like 100 people are against it, 100 people are for it, and then you're asking the commission to make a decision on something that, frankly, I don't think we weren't really,
That's why we get paid the big bucks.
there you go, yeah. But, unfortunately, on that particular subject, I personally didn't know that I was really aware of the situation. That's why I went to the place to find out exactly what's going on. So I would appreciate if, the informations are a little bit more fluid, that we can understand it better, and then so we can make a better judgment and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess it's my turn now. I couldn't agree more with all of you. Each one of you made points that I would go ahead and second. As far as the parking meter situation, Commissioner Amirian brought up really interesting points that I would definitely like to learn more as far as the motivation of the parking attendants and everything whatever was brought up. I also have a comment about that. I've got a lot of complaints from people who know that I'm on the Transportation and Parking Commission regarding the reminder that they took out. Before it used to be different, the system, and people would get a reminder that says, hey, if you want to extend your, let's say, 2 hour to 1 more hour, you can go ahead and do so. So that's not there anymore. So I've got a lot of complaints. So if we, along with the other items that we're going to be discussing, if we can get more information on why was it taken out, was that a third-party situation, this one is not able to implement it, or if we can have them implement it. So I would truly appreciate it. As far as the item that is being appealed, I don't want to repeat myself because I had that discussion outside of the commission meeting with the city attorney and Director Hernandez, and I agree with Commissioner Amirian that I felt like our decision was kind of being downgraded, I mean, I understand totally, but yeah, I would definitely want things to be more clear. And one question about that, the Glendale resident who was here that day, he left the meeting feeling satisfied with the decision that, hey, whatever concerns he had were heard and addressed. But since this is being appealed, I want to know, does this resident being notified as well that, hey, this the traffic calming situation is coming back for an appeal, and you still have to attend if you want to be heard? He did? Okay. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah, just so that gets caught on the record. He was notified and he attended the meeting and he had an opportunity to speak.
okay, great. That was my only concern. I didn't watch the meeting, so I'll go ahead and do so. Definitely. I guess that is all about whatever items we have discussed that I have an opinion or question and comments about. Thank you very much. I just wanted to kind of like update about the previous events that I've attended, the ones that I don't need city council approval to do so. I've attended the Glendale Tech Week, which was an amazing event. The turnout was beyond expectations, and would like to thank the Economic Development Department and Hero House. They did an amazing job. The panel discussions, presentations, demo day, closing ceremony, everything was just amazing. So thank you. Another wonderful and successful event was the Women's Equality Day event at the beautiful courtyard of our Alex Theater. Thank you, Elena Satrian, for the idea and making it happen. And I also attended another event, which was a complete discovery for me. Apparently, there is a young women immigrants, kind of like a networking group. I believe, if I'm not mispronouncing the name, it was called Talks by Lucy Bapian, who's an attorney here in Glendale. And it was a great event, immigrant, well-driven women expressing their ideas, sharing their stories, helping each other. So it was very, very motivating and impressive. Yeah, so that's it about the events that I've attended. And the last but not least, elections are coming up. And as a responsible citizen, I always urge people to vote, because that's our privilege, pride, and responsibility. And that's important to make our voices heard. So that's it. Thank you very much. I need to move to the next item, correct?
May I just make
Sure,
one?
go ahead, Commissioner.
I have a quick question about the parking meter in the one that you just mentioned.
Yes.
Is the limit only 4 hours?
So I would have to defer to staff. That's a specific
Yeah, because I know,
operational
the ones that you implemented in North Glendale, they're 2 hours that they can pay for, and by phone, they can add another 2 hours, but they cannot extend it more than that. And I know the ones that you're referring to, the ones that they notify you are the ones that it's located in private parkings.
No,
The
there
city
was...
ones do not do that for whatever reason. I don't know why. And I like that idea, as a matter of fact.
The ones that were on brand before, how you had to put the specific parking number, that was
As for
switched
your
to
cell phone
a...
number, yes.
Yes, now they completely
They
switched
don't,
it.
yeah.
You put your not driver license, the car license plate number, and they don't notify anything, and it's up to 2 hours only, and you
Yes.
can't extend it. You can't extend it remotely. You
hours.
have to like walk up, move your car, and even if it's up to 4 hours and you only pay for, let's say, 1 hour, you want to extend it, you have to go and then do it manually. So there is no option.
So
to
as
do
part
it
of the
remotely.
update, we could provide some
Yeah,
some
I
information.
really like to know that, because I know the one up North Glendale, you can actually do it with your phone. You can extend it, but the extension hours is only another 2 hours. So is it, they've done 4 hours to get cars move in and out, not to occupy it more than 4 hours?
Ultimately, the goal is, like as mentioned by Commissioner Marion's, turnover.
Turnover, yeah.
But that's a specific question that we
Yeah,
can
so if you can find out if the party who sponsored the first one with the phones and everything are no longer available for,
We still have the
Glendale.
mobile app. We still have the pay by phone.
yeah, but to extend it, as she mentioned.
We'll look into that and provide
All
that
right,
update.
perfect. Yeah, that would be a great thing. So if you can have it for our next for parking task force, would be helpful as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So next item is the adjournment. Do I need a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Yeah, I'll move to adjourn.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so it's been moved by Commissioner Ramirian and seconded by Commissioner Bonston to adjourn the meeting
And go
at
Dodgers.
8:08 p.m. Thank you very much and have a good night.
All right.